All right. Welcome, everybody, to Stop Scrolling, Start Connecting, the Gen Z Playbook for Growth. We are so excited that you're here. My name is Vanessa Topizer. I'm a Senior Vice President at IMI International, and this is Emma Chase Laflamme. Welcome, Emma Chase.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I'm super excited to get into this conversation with you.
It's going to be really interesting. So we do have a lot of new faces in the crowd. So just a little bit about IMI, just so that you have the context. We are a global consumer insights consultancy with the core purpose of insight driving profit. Our purpose is really to uncover solutions for marketers so that they can make really strong decisions moving forward, no matter where they are within their marketing process. So either initial discovery, through to confirmation, or ongoing optimization to maximize your efficiencies, effectiveness, and your ROI. We work in a number of different categories across the board and have been in business for a very long time. So just for those who don't know us yet, and the IMI Next Wave team is our thought leadership team at IMI International, of which Emma Chase and I are a part of. And what we are is we're really dedicated to advancing thought leadership across marketing topics that fuel growth and creativity, really trying to get marketers out of your day-to-day, out of your boardrooms or virtual boardrooms, and maybe see things in a bit of a different light or uncover opportunity that you don't know exists yet. If there is a topic that you are particularly interested in, or you want to dive deeper in this, please feel free to give us a shout or check out the content on our website at consultimi.com. We are always open for a great conversation. Now, just so you also know where the insight from today comes from, it stems from IMI Pulse, which is a very powerful data set that is at our fingertips at IMI. Launched in late 2018, our proprietary data and analytics platform of Pulse, we track billions of data points on consumer attitudes, habits, passions, and trends across 600 brands, 400 categories. There's 1,200 passion points there, really helping marketers understand, who to target, how to connect, what to say, and where to be. And so most of the insight coming from today stems from this database. So let's dive into it. We got so many questions, Emma Chase, along the way when we launched this webinar.
It was crazy. Overwhelming amount of questions.
Overwhelming amount of questions. So we are going to try to get to as many as we possibly can. If we can't get to your question, we do have the answer. So please feel free to follow up, or we will also follow up with you. But let's jump into it. Stop scrolling, start connecting. Let's dive into the Gen Z Playbook for Growth. And we've been talking about this for a while. And obviously at IMI, we monitor Gen Z, we monitor all the different generations. But Gen Z is a really important one. And this is why we're excited to bring you on this journey with us. And again, this is only the first moment in this journey. We have so much that we want to share. Gen Z is the growth pipeline. They shape culture, they dictate trends, they not only influence household spending, but they are spending themselves. And we also had a question on that about the primary grocery shopper. And they are, like if you think about younger Gen Z and older Gen Z are out. They are the primary grocery shopper for them and, either their families or themselves in their relationships. And they are becoming one of the most powerful consumer groups that we know. So as a marketer, as a business owner, capturing Gen Z now can help secure your brand's relevance and your revenue for the future. As we talk about, at Coca-Cola, we always talked about recruiting that next generation. And that's really what it is it's securing your revenue and your pipeline for the future. So today, Emma Chase and I are going to confirm or deny some of the swirling statements that we're hearing about this generation across 4 different themes. First, we're going to do a bit of a vibe check. Then we're going to look at, are they cooked? Are they not cooked? We're going to look at wellness and health, mental health, and some vices, which we had a lot of fun with. We're going to look at adulting. I mean, who really wants to talk about adulting? I think we all try to avoid it at some point in our lives or all the way through our lives, but there's a lot of questions around Gen Z and their ability to adult or their wanting to adult. And then the fourth section is chronically online. Are they?
Let's see.
We're going to talk about digital behavior and purchase behavior as well. And again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that we can share. So please, if you have any questions, ask them throughout or reach out and we'll have a conversation. All right, let's dive into it, Emma Chase. First, let's set the stage of who they are and how they live life at a very high level. Let's do a vibe check.
Let's do a vibe check. So for those who are not up to date on Gen Z slang, a vibe check is to assess the mood, the atmosphere, or general energy of a person, place, or thing. So for example, marketers who are ignoring Gen Z right now are not passing the vibe check. And hopefully when this webinar is over, said, and done, it will have passed the vibe check. So let's get into it. You'll notice that most of the sections that we have in this presentation, we've pulled out some myths, common statements. A lot of these were inspired by some of the questions that we got. Don't worry, we're not going to name any names, but also just the general discourse around Gen Z. So the one thing that you can take away from this presentation, the overarching theme that we're going to tap into, is that Gen Z lives in the now. They prioritize things that make them feel well, make them feel connected, and make them feel good. And you're going to see that in a lot of the data that we go through today. Their life is centered around enjoyment and living to the max. 82% of Gen Zs want to enjoy their life. 73% want to live today to the max. They are super focused on making the most of every single day. And there's a huge point about being excited. So we included some perspective on Insight. It's one thing to engage, but it is a next level to excite. Look, we look at thousands of passion points in our data set within Pulse, and it is rare that we see a number this high for excite, or it's not very common that we see that on a passion point. So it's really exciting to see that Gen Zs are excited about enjoying their life. And a huge part of that is celebration. So celebrating your birthday, celebrating a family member's birthday, a friend's birthday. They're looking for opportunities to celebrate with friends and family throughout the calendar year. And that extends to holidays as well. So they're looking to celebrate New Year's, July 4th, the holidays, Canada Day. They're looking for small opportunities that allow them to connect with their peers, connect with their family, their friends, and really make the most of what they're doing in their daily life. So even Halloween, St. Patrick's Day, holidays that are mostly associated with kids celebrating, Gen Zs are taking that with them into adulthood. This is a priority for them. 68% want to celebrate Halloween. It's a new opportunity to connect, express themselves. So it's a really nice time to ask yourself how you can integrate your brand into these occasions in their life.
So, I mean, I think it's pretty fantastic that they are really living in the moment. Yeah. This is their vibe and it's absolutely contagious. And I think that a lot of us can learn from Gen Zs as it relates to, living in the now and looking to enjoy themselves. So, as a brand and as a business, you can show up in a variety of moments. So, and I mean, Halloween was really surprising to us. But then when you really think about it, it's not that surprising that they want to celebrate Halloween and go out with friends and have a good time. So, pick your lane. And most importantly, keep it light and keep it engaging, because this cohort wants to have fun. They want to be engaged. They want to have a good time. And so speaking to them in their language is absolutely essential. So there's so much opportunity. The real question is what aligns with your brand and how can you connect to what they're already doing? All right, let's get into the next section. I mean, I think that we're leading the witness here. Are they cooked or are they not cooked, Emma Chase?
Uh, Gen Zs are not cooked. I will be completely honest. I did have to ask a Gen Z colleague whether I was using this correctly. So I think that we are. But again, a little update on Gen Z slang. Cooked is like when you're exhausted, you're crashing out, you're overwhelmed, not taking care of yourself. If you're in a situation you can't get out of. So Gen Z, not cooked. All right, let's talk about some of the things that we've heard about Gen Z in the realm of health. So Gen Z is obsessed with mental health. They eat healthier. They prioritize wellness more than other generations. They don't drink or party. That's a big one that we'll get into. But Vanessa, why don't you take it away to talk about health?
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Gen Z eats healthier and prioritizes wellness more than other generations. This is something that is swirling around, that they are all about health, they are all about wellness, and that is all that's important to them. So let's actually throw it out to you guys. How engaged are Gen Z with being healthy in comparison to the general population? Are they A, way more engaged, B, somewhat engaged, C, the same, somewhat less engaged, way less engaged? If you throw it into the chat, what do you think? A, B, C, D, or E? What do you think, Emma Chase?
I mean, I'll try and pretend I don't know the answer. But I did think that they were probably either way more engaged or somewhat more engaged because health and wellness is such a big part of their life on digital, online, offline, socially. So I really thought that it was going to be way more engaged.
So we're seeing a lot of A's, so way
Oh,
more engaged.
I'm not alone.
You're not you're not alone, Emma Chase, and somewhat more engaged. All right, let's talk about this. They're actually the same. This was shocking to us, is that being healthy isn't unique to Gen Z. It's actually universal. So this is engagement on being healthy. So 76% for Gen Pop, 76% for Gen Z. And Gen Zs are engaged, but they're also excited to eat healthier. So, they are engaged to eat healthier, 65%. This is eat specifically, not be healthy. And 29%, and as Emma Chase showed earlier, that this is still a pretty high number for the excitement to eat healthier. But always remember, and we talk about this a lot, is there is that say-do gap. So there's doing, and then there's saying. There's always the ones that are actually going to do it. And then there's ones that are going to, stick around with their friends and commiserate about it and maybe not do anything about it. And that's the same across all generations. You can see here, only eat healthy foods in the dark blue and be healthy in the teal. Gen Z wants to be healthy, but less are only eating healthy foods. And so, there's that excitement, but they're not necessarily doing it. And if you see here, which was surprising to us, is that millennials are displaying the largest conviction for actually eating healthy foods and wanting to be healthy. So there are gaps in Gen Z's attitudes and behaviors, just like the rest of us. 54% say they only eat healthy food, but then 75% eat candy, 74% drink soda, 73% eat fast food. So there's still room for many offerings and brands to play in a role in their lives. It's not health all the time. So the reality is that Gen Z lives in a world where wellness is both taking care, but also treating themselves. So if you look at, these are the rank when it comes to healthy foods and indulgent ones on Excite. So they are excited to eat more fruit. They are excited to be healthier. They'll reward themselves by having a snack, but they're also excited to eat candy. So, there is the two sides of the coin that we're seeing. So, Gen Zs eat healthier and prioritize wellness more than other generations. I mean, the fact is that Gen Z wants to live a healthier life, yet their behavior tells a more complex story. And there's a real desire to live well. And as you know, Emma Chase talked about at the very beginning, they really want to live in the moment, and they really want to live in the now. But the follow through also isn't completely consistent as it relates to eating healthier. So don't throw out that sugar just yet.
Oh, this is a big one. I'm going to break the fourth wall here and say that Vanessa and I fought tooth and nail over who was going to dispel this myth or prove it true. And somehow I got to present this section. So let's get into it. This is a really, really big one. We hear a lot about how Gen Z is boring compared to other generations, or doesn't like to drink, or doesn't party. And look, guys, Gen Zs are not saints. They're still drinking. They're drinking liquor, they're drinking cocktails around the same amount as the general population, dipping a little bit lower there on beer. But they're still drinking. This is still very much a part of their life, of their social life. And they are not the sober generation by any stretch. And weed is still on the menu for them in so many different formats. To be honest, when we were putting this together, I couldn't even believe that there was this many ways to consume cannabis. I was not aware. So as you can see here, through a lot of different facets, but they are consuming weed at a higher rate than the general population. So they are definitely indulging on this side as well. When it comes to smoking, this is another big one. And I think we got a question about this as well. The Gen Zs aren't smoking as much traditional cigarettes, but they are smoking nicotine vape pens more. So it's the same thing, just a different format. They are indulging, they are kind of living it up. And again, it ties back to this. They're living in the moment, they're living in the now. They want to lead a healthy life, but they don't want to inhibit themselves, right? So it's not about replacing a vice, it's about coexisting with it. So it's interesting that we see these numbers, but then we also see that there's an emphasis on harm reduction. So Gen Zs do want to quit smoking, or at least reduce their smoking, or reduce their use of cannabis or alcohol. So that want to be healthy, that saying I'm going to be healthy, and that doing, there's still that say-do gap that we referred to in the last section. So Vanessa, what do you think?
So Gen Z doesn't drink or party. They do.
Yeah.
They're drinking, they're smoking, they're riding the same I want to do better roller coaster than many of us know pretty well. And they aren't the saints that some think they are. Now listen, like the amount of smoking and the amount of drinking may also, be less than other generations are. Like we're comparing right now general population as it currently stands, and not looking at what was in the past. But the reality is that they do drink and party. They do have a lot of fun that does coexist with each other. And so they are not the saints that some think they are. So the next one is Gen Z is obsessed with mental health. We hear that a lot. And the reality is that mental health is central to Gen Z's experience. They're excited about life, but there is complexity, and mainly for that older Gen Z cohort. Now, when we're talking about Gen Z in general, we're really looking at 13 to 28. The numbers that you're seeing in here are of that emerging commerce group. And so that's the 13 to 24 that we're looking at. When we talk about the younger Gen Z, that is, up to 18. And then the older Gen Z is 19 plus. And so they are at different life stages. The younger Gen Z is, more likely in high school, and the older Gen Z is either in college, university, or they are starting out in their work life. But you can see here that, older Gen Z, 60% are experiencing depression. 56% are talking and thinking about suicide. Those are big numbers. And don't do things I want to do due to social anxiety, 55%. But you can see actually through all generations that is there. So as marketers, as business owners, if you are looking to put on an experience, making sure that you're not showing a lot of people in a crowd. You're showing people that are together with friends or family with 10 people, that sort of a thing. And that will help them push through that social anxiety. But the numbers are pretty large as it relates to the old Gen Z. More than half of Gen Zs are aware and talking about their mental health. So 53% of Gen Zs will speak to somebody about anxiety or depression. I think that's pretty impressive, to be perfectly honest. Some Gen Zs are confronting mental health challenges head on, more so than the general population, but not all. And it might not be that they are experiencing mental health concerns so much that they need to talk to a psychologist, that they need to talk to a psychiatrist or call a suicide hotline. Some are, which is great, but the fact that they are talking about it openly with friends and family and people that they trust is a really good thing. So the way that we look at this is, how can brands play a role and businesses play a role in giving them the support that they need, but also the support that they want? And when you talk about cause and effect, bullying isn't a distant issue for Gen Z. They're aware and they're really vocal about it. So 58% are talking or thinking about bullying. So what we're seeing here is that Gen Z is really stepping up and they're pushing the issue. And we're seeing that across the board when it comes to many different issues and social norms, is that Gen Zs are really pushing it. And that has to do with like health and wellness as well. The fact that they're excited about it, they're pushing the issue. It doesn't mean that that's all they're living. So that's not necessarily the reality, but they're still talking about it and they're still pushing it. And that's quite impressive. So, is Gen Z obsessed with mental health? Gen Z is experiencing mental health challenges at higher rates than the general population, but they're also far more willing to acknowledge it, talk about it, and in some cases seek support. So, they're not obsessed, but perhaps they're smarter for making it part of the conversation now.
It's really inspiring in a lot of ways.
I completely agree. Okay, so now let's talk about adulting.
Oh God.
This is a good one.
This is a great one. We also received a lot of questions around this. I don't think most of us are experts in adulting, but I think it's still important to get into it because there's a lot that people are saying about Gen Z when it comes to handling the tasks and responsibilities of adult life. So let's talk about it. Gen Z is lazy. Gen Z has no career ambition and doesn't really care about their future. Gen Z has no concept of saving money. I want to dial into the second one that I just mentioned there and talk about how Gen Z has no career ambition and doesn't really care about their future. But before we really dive in, let's bring it to the audience. So, what percentage of Gen Zs are engaged with thinking about their future? We've got 63%, 54, 72, 81, 93. Kind of vast scope of numbers here. I know you know the answer, Vanessa, but prior to knowing the answer, what did you think it was going to be?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because we've heard this swirling around a lot in conversations that we've been having with marketers, but just also in life. And the general sentiment is that many are not thinking about the future. And so that's where, I would have leaned towards the 54. But what we're seeing come through is a lot of, okay, so we have D, we have 81, we have 63. Oh, we have a 93. So someone who's really pushing for Gen Z, thinking about their future.
I saw some 93s coming in earlier. So the answers are really all over the map. So it's interesting that the people are a little bit confused as to how Gen Z feels about their future. So let's get into it. It's 81%. So I think this is a pretty high number. And all of the data that we look through points to the fact that Gen Z does want to do something with their life. They're not lazy. They're not ignoring it. They're not ignoring their future or allowing themselves to hope and dream. They're thinking about it. And they're not just thinking about it, they're talking about it and they're educating themselves so that they can make it happen. 60% of Gen Zs want to have a successful career. So this is definitely something that still rings true and is important to them. When we were looking at this data, it made me feel really proud of this generation because not only are they focused on making something of themselves, but they believe that their voice matters and they feel driven to make meaningful impact. So 66% of Gen Zs want to have a voice that people listen to, and 63% want to leave a positive impact on their community. And ultimately, they want to inspire people. So 64% of Gen Zs want to become an inspiration to others around them. I think this is really powerful, especially considering looking at the numbers of how many Gen Zs are experiencing mental health challenges and how high those numbers were. That despite that, they still have this really essentially positive outlook on life and belief that they're able to be more and to hope for more and want more. So I think it's really great.
So the next one is Gen Z has no concept of saving money. And again, you need to look at the younger versus the older, but they are starting to actively engage in core financial behaviors. This was a little bit surprising to us as well, and driven by the older Gen Z generation. But we are seeing contribute to a TFSA, contribute to a 401k, make a mortgage payment, and that would be for the older cohort. So they are starting to actively engage in core financial behaviors. And while they're leveraging traditional methods to talk about and plan for the now and for their future, they're also doing things a little bit differently. So if you see here, talk with someone about their financial future, followed a finance influencer, 41% versus Gen Pop, download an app to track spending, 40% versus, and just a little bit higher versus Gen Pop, but they are looking at things a little bit differently. 41% are following a finance influencer. So the reality is that Gen Zs are showing interest in practical, relatable money guidance. So if you're a financial institution, you're looking to bring Gen Z in your fold, help them plan for their future in a language they enjoy and they understand. Meet them where they are. And remember, Gen Zs want to have fun. They want to enjoy. There is that contagious enjoyment of life that this cohort really wants to maximize. So no matter what your vantage point is, think about that when you're looking to engage them. It cannot be the corporate vibe. And they're actually showing excitement around banking activities. So this is the rank of excited about being thoughtful about spending money, excited about eating at home more often to save money, contributing to a savings account. So there is excitement around banking activities and finance that I don't think, based on the questions that have been swirling around, that is what people think is the norm. So, to answer the question, Gen Z's financial maturity is far greater than people assume, but they need information delivered in a way that feels clear, simple, and human, not corporate. So meet them at the start of their financial journey, not in the middle, because right now is when they're forming their habits. And the brands that show up early will build that lifelong loyalty. Okay, so let's talk about section 4. Again, lots of questions about this one.
Yeah,
Are they chronically online?
I feel like this is the hottest topic. That like the amount of questions around this is very impressive. So let's dive into it. Are Gen Zs chronically online? We hear a lot about this. Gen Z is only influenced by influencers. They only shop online, that their entire lives exist online and not really in the real world. So before we dive in with the facts, we want to throw it back to everyone again. We really enjoy testing you all. What do you think the most used social media platform is among Gen Z? So you have Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. What did
Let's
you think
see.
it was, Vanessa? I know you know the answer.
I mean, I know the answer, so I can't.
Okay, you can
I think
keep
that
it to
that would be
yourself.
yeah, exactly. But I
Okay,
think that, that they all have their spot. It also depends on younger and older
yeah.
Gen Z. I do have a younger Gen Z that's in my household, and Snapchat is big for her. TikTok is big for her, and as well as YouTube.
Wow, it is like overwhelmingly TikTok from the audience. And someone saying Snapchat is next. I
Snapchat is the
agree.
worst.
I agree. I thought it was over. It came back with a vengeance with Gen Z. We could have left that in 2012. I don't know why it's back again, but alas, here we are. So let's get into it. YouTube is the number one platform for Gen Z, and I'll tell you, I was surprised by this result. So let's talk about it. Are they chronically online? Are they only influenced by influencers? So Gen Z is online. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone that is listening to this webinar. They're absolutely online. Um, but they're using YouTube the most, which to me was quite surprising. Instagram is a close second, TikTok coming in third, and then Snapchat and Facebook competing for fourth place, which also surprised me quite a bit. I relate Facebook to an older demographic, so it was interesting to see that one is still relevant among Gen Z. And TikTok also being number three. To me, TikTok is almost like the unofficial sponsor of Gen Z. So it was interesting to see that YouTube and Instagram are still more prevalent with Gen Z. So they have their platforms, they use them frequently, they're online, but they're not everywhere. So it's important to know that although Gen Z is a very highly digital generation, they pick and choose where they show up. And they're not everywhere. So it's not every single platform that is getting the same amount of attention. But one thing that they're really excited about is being online with friends and family. So they're super engaged with following their friends on social media, following family on social media. I think there's a lot of assumption that Gen Zs use social media mainly to communicate with friends and family are kind of left to the side. And it's simply not true. It's a little bit less, but it's still something that they're doing. They're still keeping in touch with their family on social media. But it's not just that sense of community that's in the real world that translates to digital. It's also the other way around. So they do follow influencers and brands and celebrities and athletes and people that they may not know in real life, but that by following them and having that relationship online feel like they do. So this is still very important to Gen Z. Some influencers are a bigger deal for Gen Z in a variety of commercial industries. So we see this especially with fitness, especially with beauty. So if Gen Z is actively seeking inspiration from online creators, it's a really nice moment as a brand, a product, or a service, how you can integrate yourself authentically in their need for inspiration. They aren't only online though, which I find this really interesting. So we go back to the question, the golden question, are they chronically online? And the answer is while they are online, it's not 24/7 all the time. They're really trying to make an effort to connect with arts and culture. They want to understand how they can express themselves creatively. They want to explore new experiences. So they want to go to the movies. They want to draw. They want to sing. They want to paint. They want to take part in activities that help them find themselves, find community, and experience the world around them.
So Gen Z is chronically online. They're only influenced by influencers. Gen Z is deeply online. And, I think that when we look at the general population, so is the general population. The intensity of Gen Z is a little bit higher, but they are highly selective about where they show up. And so it's not about online all the time. It's about specifics of where they are. And they follow creators they trust. They stay close to friends and family, and they ignore platforms that don't feel personal. So they're not aimlessly scrolling. And perhaps what they're doing is curating digital spaces that feel authentic and human. It is part of their community and it is part of their world, but it's not everything. So that actually leads us into this one, which is also I need to sit up tall for this one because this is always an interesting conversation. Gen Z doesn't shop in store. So we're going to throw it out to you guys again. How much does Gen Z shop in store online compared to in store? Is it way more, somewhat more, about the same, somewhat less, way less? I might have led the witness a little bit, but let's see what you guys think. How much does Gen Z shop online compared to in store?
Right, we're getting some C's, about the same. Got a B, somewhat more.
Okay.
Ooh, we got a D, somewhat less. All right.
Oh,
Okay. Controversial
shocking.
opinion.
Maybe just throwing it out there. Way
Yeah.
less.
Someone just wants to be right today.
Oh, this is great. So there's tons of different answers.
All
There's
over the
another
map.
D, somewhat less.
We got
B, somewhat more.
way less. So we're all over the map here, which is great.
I love it. So it's about the same.
Yeah.
So whoever said it's about the same, you can give yourself a big pat on the back there. So don't get rid of those bricks and mortar stores just yet. So when we look at, Gen Z browsing in store and online, they do it at similar overall rates. So if you look here at engagement past 12 months, 79% are browsing online, 77% are also browsing in store. So they're not just online. If you do look at the intensity, so daily, weekly, 53% online browsing is a little bit more intense. And I think that rings true to many of the generations as well, where it's sort of that habitual, quick, exploratory behavior. And it's really no different than anybody else. You're on your phone, you're exploring, and you're seeing what's out there. And what we're seeing too is that digital is taking over the marketing spend. So when you look at it from a marketing perspective, 7 in 10 media dollars are now invested in digital. But digital doesn't always seal the deal. So if you see that, browsing online, but they purchase because of a social platform, it doesn't always seal the deal. So think about it in your media plans and think about it in your overall marketing spend and challenge yourself and your partners. Is that 70% in digital driving efficiency or margin? And the question is shifting from how much to how well. When it comes to actual purchasing, both online and in-store matter. So 79% shop online, 77% shop in-store. So they don't prefer one over the other. They choose based on a number of factors, and both have their lane. And we dug into this in accelerating consumer engagement as well, where we talked about what you need to lean into if you're online and what you should lean into if you're in store. And there is some crossover, but they don't play the same role. And so knowing what the role is can help you diversify your revenue streams and really make sure that your business is leaning in to specific areas when it should. And interaction, actual physical interaction, is at the center for Gen Z. So make it meaningful, memorable, and playful. Purchase because the brand lets you interact with their product when entering a store, 52% for Gen Z. Purchase because a brand lets you interact with their product on the street, 46% for Gen Z. So they do want to be interacted with by brands, and make it fun and make it playful and make it memorable. And don't forget about the tried and true tactics. Promotions and display do and always will drive purchase. You can see the numbers here are very similar than they are for Gen Pop. I mean, who doesn't love a deal? Who doesn't love a promotion? Gen Zs want to purchase because it showed a promotion. They wanted to win on a pack. So those on packs, they still work. So as we, look at this digital generation and we talk about always on and all digital all the time, you have to make sure that your marketing mix is well balanced and don't throw away the tried and true tactics that have been around for a long time and still work. So Gen Z doesn't shop in store is something that we've heard a lot. They're not digital all the time. In-store still matters, and it often drives the conversion that digital doesn't always do. That touch, that feel, that exploration of something new, that seeing a deal, getting together with friends, shopping with friends, shopping with family, that's part of the event as well. And so online can build community and connection, but it's not everything. Brands really win when they show up in both places, not just one. So ensure that you're aligning your budgets accordingly. So let's land this plane. We have 4 takeaways for everybody in the audience, and then we have a little bit of time for some of the questions. But again, a lot of people did ask questions coming in. I have them in front of me right now. We will circle back with you, or please circle back with us, because we have a lot of the answers at our fingertips. So number 1, Gen Z is far more balanced and purposeful than stereotypes suggest. Over 50 tracked aspirations, the data shows a generation striving to build a better life and a better world. And that's pretty inspirational. This is a generation that's anchored in agency, contribution, and self-determination, experiences, learning, and community, however it shows up online and in person, drives them forward. They're not saints, but Gen Z aspires to live well, contribute more, and be a positive force. But they are operating in ecosystems built currently for overconsumption and distraction. So think about the social networks that we're seeing. Think about everything coming at them all the time. But they really want to live well. They want to contribute more, and they want to be a positive force. And their online world is important, but Gen Z chooses carefully who or what earns their attention. So if you're looking to talk to this generation, you need to talk to them in a way that's playful, that's fun, that's engaging, and gets them and meets them exactly where they are. And number 5 is don't throw away the tried and true marketing tactics and go always online and all digital all the time. Make sure you balance your marketing spend wisely to maximize your effectiveness and ROI. At IMI, we talk about it all the time, measuring everything on one ruler. And where do you need to be based on what you're looking to do, what you're looking to achieve, and who you're looking to drive growth with, and then measure it and understand if you're getting the return that you want to be getting and that you're spending your money wisely on an ongoing basis. And the core tension really is, when we look at marketing all the time, what we're really looking at is solving that core tension that exists. And how can your brand show up to solve that core tension? Gen Z aspires to live well. They contribute more and to be a positive force. But again, they're operating in ecosystems built for overconsumption, distraction, and revenue extraction. So the result is a generation that's trying to reduce harmful behaviors. They're trying to make better choices. They're trying to build healthier futures while navigating a world that's engineered to really pull them in the opposite direction. So think about this tension when devising your marketing plans. Think about this tension when devising your budgets. And how can you, as a brand, a product, or service, lean in to help solve that tension and meet this generation where they are? A lot to unpack here.
It's a lot. And we have so much more. And I think that that's really the fun thing. And I hope that we can do another one of these, because I think that even when we were going through the data and looking at what to pull for this presentation, there are so many things that just genuinely shocked me about this generation, and in a positive way.
Yeah.
I think that they get a bad rep online, these poor Gen Zs. You know, they weren't necessarily handed a world that would set them up for success, but they're really trying. And I think that that's not something that gets spoken about very often. So it's great.
Yeah, I agree. And this is just the beginning. We do have so much more that we want to share. And please, if you have any questions, please reach out. Why don't we take a few minutes, Emma Chase, and go through just a few of the questions. I mean, we literally have about 20 questions that are in front of us. So why don't we go through maybe 4 or 5, and then maybe there's some that we can answer pretty quickly to help get you what you need, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, let's do it. There's one question that I really loved, that was, what does aspirational mean for Gen Z? Is it purpose? Is it experience? Celebrity? What does that look like for Gen Z? What are your thoughts, Vanessa?
I think that, we went through what aspiration is, and across, the 50 plus aspirations, their priorities overwhelmingly point to meaning, connection, and contribution, and not excess. And the data really shows that this is a generation that is striving to build a better life and a better world. And so there's clear, consistent themes of enjoying life, educating myself so that I can do what I like, living life to the max, leaving a positive impact on their community. So it's not just about celebrity. It's not just about experience. It's not just about purpose. It's actually all encompassing. And based on where you're looking to insert yourselves in their world, you have to make sure that what you're looking to display as a brand and what they're looking for, you can find that authentic connection that is a really good fit, and then going to market in a way that's really playful and fun. I mean, KFC has done, I know I talk about KFC a lot.
You always make me crave fried chicken, Vanessa. You need to stop.
There's something there, but they have done a really good job about making things playful. And,
Yeah.
you can see that they're looking to get into the beverage business right now. They do have an ad that's talking about a new sparkling beverage, but they do it in a very playful and fun way. And that's what you need to do to attract Gen Z. And it's not just about celebrity. It's about which celebrity, and is that celebrity showing up in a way that's real, that they can actually connect with.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers the question a little bit.
No, I think that's perfect. I think at a high level, Gen Zs just really care about authentically enjoying themselves.
They do.
And that is aspiration to them. We had another question, which I really like this one. The biggest misconception or mistakes that brands are making in terms of connecting and reaching Gen Z.
Yeah. So, I mean, the number one biggest mistake you can make is treating the Gen Z as one group. It's a generation, but the reality is that within this generation, there are so many different ways. There are different life stages and places that they are. So, a 13-year-old, I have a 14-year-old. She is very different than a 28-year-old that is married and has 2 kids. Actually, I have children that span the Gen Z age group. So, and they are all very different. So, the biggest mistake is just putting them all into one pot. And you have to look at it as not age, but it's life stage and behavior within the different parts of Gen Z and age groups. There are different behaviors. There are some that are out and they are imbibing and they are partying and they are vaping, and there's others that are not. And so really understanding, the role that you play in their lives, and understanding the role that you want to play in their lives and what your brand, product, or service is all about, and finding that meaningful connection is absolutely essential. Now, I know that there's another part to that question that talks about which brands and industries are doing the best at engaging this cohort. And what we see is brands that offer consistency and commitment on a North American basis. And right now in the US and in Canada, so it's leaning into the US. If you're in the US, it's leaning into Canada if you're in Canada. So we see the likes of Nike, Adidas, Amazon, Walmart, Apple, Samsung, Coke. They know who they are as a brand, and they build trust with this group to deliver. And in the Canadian marketplace, we're seeing Nike, Rogers, Lululemon as well, Tim Hortons, and Canadian Tire really showing up for this cohort. So those are some of the brands that you can look to and you can lean on from a North Star perspective.
We have another question that kind of leans into this idea as well of how to better communicate with them in a way that really lands authentically.
Yeah, and that's all about what we talked about throughout the webinar, Emma Chase. It's meet them where they are, be playful. They're not about corporate. And so get rid of the corporate jargon, get rid of, the stiff, get rid of the suits, and have a little fun with what you're doing, and making sure obviously that it's authentic to your brand, but have a little fun and get to know this generation that's doing things a little bit differently. And to be perfectly honest, is very inspirational. And I think that we could all aspire to be a little bit more like Gen Z in our day-to-day lives.
And I think that sense of fun is contagious on the brand side as well. It's like this generation is also pushing people to really understand what it means to experience their brand and what fun looks like from a brand context. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and think about it too as a brand or a product or service. If you're running a business and you are hiring Gen Zs and that's your next generation, how do you make it fun and engaging, knowing that is what they're looking for in their lives, but they're also looking to work hard. They're also looking to be inspirations to others. They're also looking to do well in their careers. And so how do you make sure that you bring both to the forefront from a corporate perspective as well? It's not just for brands messaging out to the world, but how are we as leaders of this generation leaning into what's most important to them at the forefront as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on something really impactful there where Gen Zs are looking for a platform to be heard. And that's something that we saw in the data in a lot of different ways. So yeah, no, it's fantastic. I think we have time for one more question.
Okay.
If you don't mind me continuing to pick your brain. I never want these Q&As to end because it just feels like the two of us having a good chat. But someone would like to know, how does Gen Z influence Gen Alpha?
Yeah, that's so. I mean, Gen Alpha. Just to state who Gen Alpha is, they're the next generation coming in after Gen Z, the younger Gen Z. Obviously, the biggest thing that as Gen Z, what they can do is positively influence Alpha right now. Alpha is just sort of creating what their thoughts, what their purpose is, what how they act, what they need, what they know. They are a generation that seems to be a little bit stronger right out the gate in terms of knowing who they are and acceptance of others as well. Obviously, there are nuances, but the biggest thing that Gen Z can do to influence Gen Alpha is being that older sibling to the age cohort and bringing them along on the path and positively influencing them wherever they go. And as we sort of stated, Gen Z is a really positive influence. And to circle back to where we were at the beginning, there are so many statements that are swirling around there about Gen Z. And I think that knowing the facts and understanding that they are a very inspirational generation is something that Gen Alpha can also learn from and grow into as they get older and they come into, you know, into our worlds as another and the next emerging commerce group.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. You always share such a thoughtful perspective, and I'm sure everyone really appreciates in the audience. I also wanted to say thank you to everyone who sent in questions. This was like an overwhelming amount of questions that we got. And it made it really fun to put this together for you guys because it gave us a lot to think about as well and how we wanted to approach this. So thank you so much for joining, submitting questions. And also, our ears are always open. I could talk about Gen Z for hours. So, if there's a question on your mind or something that you want to find out, please slide into my LinkedIn DMs, connect with us, connect with Vanessa. We're always happy to have a chat, talk things through that are most meaningful to you. So, thank you very, very much for today.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Emma Chase. Great conversation.
All right. Thanks so much, Vanessa. Have a great
Bye.
day, everybody. Bye.